This is Raphael.
I'm Loryn.
We're the Pacheco siblings, and welcome to the Hypercube podcast, a talk show in which two siblings converse about anything and everything. All right, at it again.
Doing it one more time.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah. Well, we touched on it a little bit on our previous recording, but you are in quite a different location, so we're still getting used to the kinks of remote recording.
Yeah.
For this particular podcast, we've done a lot of remote recording before, of course, but just not for this format.
Right.
But yeah. You seem like you're having a good time, though. You seem really happy.
I'm having a great time. I'm having a good old time. It is nice out here. It is insanely beautiful when it's not raining.
Yeah. Well, you're in winter right now, and I am not.
Going into winter, yeah. Or in autumn, I think.
Yeah. Well, I was just complaining after we finished our last recording. I was sweating like nobody's business. It's getting hot here.
It's getting hot. It's summertime.
It's getting so hot. And you're not.
I'm not. I'm getting cold.
You're currently you're getting cool weather. So, but that's what I was wondering.
Though.
I was like, because I referenced the fact that I was like, oh yeah, I should probably make sure I can get more tan. Well, now that I'm closer to the sun.
Yeah.
Because I don't get out much. So I'm like, my brown potential is not completely fulfilled.
You haven't lived up to your potential. Your melanin potential.
Yeah. I'm relatively pale for our family because I'm a pioneer of the indoors, as it says on a lot of my social media bios.
I do like that little phrase that you have on your social media little bios.
Yeah, I like that one. I thought it was quite original. I felt clever coming up with that one. I've always kind of kept it because I feel like it very succinctly describes.
It's very good. I like it.
The diagnosis.
Diagnosis.
It's just like, I'm living an adventurous life in here. So
behind closed doors.
Yeah, but I do feel like I need to. Obviously, like if I just got out more, or probably wore more short sleeve shirts. But like that's never really been a part of my thing. But even in my face, like I generally am not nearly as dark as my potential probably is.
Right.
I'm like I said, I'm relatively light skinned for someone of our family.
I think I got darker here a little bit.
Do you think you did? Has Australia made you darker?
No, I've just been going out more.
Oh, okay. Well, you're always fairly dark though. At least a lot by comparison.
Yeah, even inside. Yeah.
Well, because you're always more of an outdoor kid anyway. At least comparatively. You did sports and all that, and
I want to be more outdoors.
But anyway, I was just making that comment about how, I would like to try and work on that. I'm like, maybe I should do that now that I'm a little bit closer to the sun. And then you're like, well, you are. And so I'm like, how does that work again? How do the seasons work? Because it's like, how is one side of the planet closer to the sun than the other? Because I understand that the seasons are determined by your proximity to the sun, but it's different in different regions.
Yes.
In different hemispheres.
It's because the Earth is on a tilt. You know, the Earth's axis, right? Yeah,
axial tilt.
Yeah. It is roughly 24 degrees that the Earth is tilted on its axis. So as it spins, I think also because of like gyroscopic stuff, it maintains like its absolute position, which means as it rotates around the sun, its relative angle to the sun changes. So if you look at it, I'm making hand motions that you can't see because it's.
Yeah, I'm sure you are.
It is a very visual thing. Like you can intuit it, but if you see it, it becomes a lot more obvious, right?
Right.
But there is an angle where the top half, the top hemisphere of the sun is facing the sun. Or the
top hemisphere of the sun.
There is an angle where the top half of the Earth, the top hemisphere of the Earth is facing the sun, and as the Earth is tilted in that way, the top half is getting more light than the bottom half just because of its angle. And as it rotates, it just gets hotter. That is all. That's why. It's just because it's facing the sun more.
It's like a rotisserie.
Basically. And then so the Earth faces the sun. And the top half will get more light and more sunlight and will heat up because it's just facing the sun more. 1/2 of a year later, the side that was facing the sun is now facing away from the sun. So the side of the Earth that was facing away from the sun before is now facing the sun because the sun is, if you think about it, is now behind the Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that part heats up. So then the lower atmosphere and the upper hemisphere switch places exactly 1/2 of the time.
So it's not based on the Earth's proximity to the sun in its orbit? Because I understand it does have an elliptical orbit, though, which means at some times it will be closer to the sun than at other times. What does that inform about us, our day?
That informs the length of the seasons.
Okay.
So basically, how long it takes for the sun, because like when the Earth gets closer to the sun, it's moving faster. And as it goes further away from the sun, it moves slower. So that determines the length of the seasons. So as it's getting closer, it'll slingshot past faster, and that season will be slower. And then once it goes out further, it'll slow down and move back around. And then those seasons will be longer.
Wait, which seasons are the long seasons then?
I don't remember exactly which, but I think
Is it summer and winter?
I believe so. I believe it works out that like our tilt and our axis and our
Wait, no. It has to be
are roughly equivalent.
It has to be summer and winter.
So I think
because that's when the equinox is. Wait, no, that's different. That's day length.
Yeah.
And day length isn't determined by either of those things, not the axial tilt or the proximity to the sun.
It is determined by the axial tilt.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm even more confused.
Well, the axial tilt determines day length, and that's why in summer, the hottest day is the direct middle of summer, because that's the point when your axis is pointed directly at the sun.
You're just staring right at it.
You're just staring right at it. And then the winter solstice is when the exact opposite is when the other hemisphere's axis is pointed directly at the sun. So you're lined up on both sides, and because of your tilt, as the Earth is spinning, you spend more time in daylight because you're tilted towards the sun.
Right, and that's why the closer you are to the poles, the more extreme the length of your days or nights are going to be.
Exactly.
Because you're like right there where it's pointing.
Yeah. So there is a line, or there is a boundary. I had to do all this research for doing like celestial movements for our D&D campaign setting.
Oh yeah.
And I ended up just like, I did a ton of research. I was like, how can I mess with these numbers and make it good? And I messed with it a little bit, and I came up with something good. I was like, okay, I like this. Ah, dang it, I just made Earth again.
Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of world building, is oftentimes you try to fudge around with physics, but, it's really hard to, honestly, what it comes down to, it's really hard to, like, make more perfect what God made here on this Earth. Like, there are so many variables that just align to make Earth just ideal in a lot of ways to sustain life.
So obviously we have the equator, which is the center of the Earth as it rotates, right? But then there's another, not equator, but there's another line that's north and south of the equator, which is where if you go north, you have the equator. Anywhere above that line is where the sun will be in view at least half of the year. And then the further up you go, it goes more than 50%, right? So like, if you're directly on this this one particular point, the sun is always in view because you can just see it. It's just always there.
Oh wow!
And then, or was it? Yeah, there's something along the lines of that is where the sun is just like once you pass that barrier, that's when you can start to see the sun for more than half of the year.
Right. Wow.
And then you have, instead of having like day night cycles, you have day night years.
Yeah, day night seasons.
Half of the year is in sun, half of the year is in night.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where you get stuff like that movie Insomnia.
Which good movie, Al Pacino.
Yeah, I think of the Christopher Nolan version, of which apparently was a remake of an older film.
Oh, I know.
But the Christopher Nolan version is what I know. But yeah, like they have that sort of
That's when
setting.
you showed me, I think.
Yeah, we both saw that one. But yeah, that's
because Alaska's in that area.
Yeah, I think that took place in Alaska, and it's just like this weird quirk of the setting in that particular film. And yeah, I guess other films, like I think 30 Days a Night is also about that.
That makes sense.
Except it's the opposite problem. Whereas in Insomnia, he has too much daylight. In 30 Days a Night, there's too much nighttime.
Yeah. That's a vampire film, right?
Yeah, that's a vampire film. I haven't seen it. Apparently, it's really good.
That's what I hear.
Or apparently the original apparently is really good. But haven't seen it. Haven't seen any version of it, actually.
Oh, I just know it by its
reputation.
That's it.
Yeah. Apparently, there might be like a really solid oneer in the original, and I'm like, ooh, I'm a sucker for oneers.
When was the original released?
Let me Google. So it was released in 2007.
The original?
Yeah, apparently.
Wow,
Well,
that's-
so I actually now I'm not sure now.
Okay, that's pretty recent.
Yeah, now I'm actually not sure if it was a remake. I think I might be thinking of a different film, but apparently it was an adaptation, but not a remake. It was a comic book first.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I guess
that
I
makes
think I
sense.
knew there was some sort of. I must have had in my head that there's some sort of source material, but yeah, I think there was just the one film.
Something came first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Apparently Sam Raimi produced,
Oh,
but apparently it's decent.
that's what I hear. That's what I hear, and I'm interested. I like the concept. That is for sure.
That's a great concept. Ooh, it's Rotten Tomatoes ain't great, but apparently people love it.
Is it one of those films that has like a critic and a
Yeah, the critic and the audience ratings
community
are like,
rating that they vary wildly?
yeah, it's vastly different. But anyway, yeah, you should watch that at some point.
Maybe.
Okay, speaking of watching stuff,
Mhm.
I've got a rant. Have you seen?
Oh,
I know you haven't.
oh no.
But I just saw this again on our topics list, and I'm angry. I got angry just looking at it.
Oh boy.
So, have you seen about they recently came out with the teasers, 2 teasers, not one, but 2 teasers
2 teasers
for the Resident Evil Netflix series.
No, I haven't seen it, but I heard you talking about it on the community Discord, which you can find on our website.
Yes.
So there, if you want to join us in topics like that.
As well as the description of all our YouTube videos. So you have no excuse if you're watching YouTube videos and don't read and do stuff like that. So, okay. So the Resident Evil Netflix series. So
Okay, hit me, Raph.
where do I begin? Well, first off, I know that was of course a rhetorical question because I know
Right.
you don't watch trailers. Do you think you will ever
Or teasers.
watch the trailers or teasers? That's a kind of trailer. Do you think you'll ever watch the trailers for this? Or can I just talk about this openly here?
You can talk about it openly, but I think at some point you're gonna have to show me. But I feel like you have to, like, it's like one of those like you have to guide me through, like hold my hand through and be like, okay, here's what's happening.
Okay. Okay.
It's okay. It's gonna be okay.
So, oh my goodness. So first off, I feel like the comment. First off, the comment section is hilarious. That's the most entertaining part about it.
Of course, obviously.
But like there's
It's a big community thing.
yeah. I mean, and there's this recurring critique that I often see, which is just like this is what I've been saying, and just everybody's just realizing it because this is the second live action Resident Evil adaptation we've had in like the past couple of years. There's a lot of Resident Evil adaptations that have been going on lately. Capcom is just shilling the rights out for this wherever they can, I guess. I don't know why, but
Are they losing money?
I don't think so.
Like, are you doing the Marvel thing back in the day?
Well, Resident Evil is currently their most profitable franchise. 7 really revitalized the series. It was currently
yeah.
one of the most, if not the most, I can't remember if it overtook 5 as the most sold Resident Evil title and one of the most sold Capcom titles of all time. Then
Man.
8 really capitalized on its success, right? Everybody was talking about Village when it came out, right? It was just a cultural moment. And not to mention the memes because of Lady Dimitrescu. But
Of course.
yeah,
They know how to appeal to the fan base.
Resident Evil is strong financially. But for some reason they're getting really loose with the license right now where they're just trying to capitalize on how strong it is.
Yeah, maybe they're
So I think it's the case that
getting greedy.
executives and producers all of a sudden remembered that Resident Evil exists after its recent success. And they're like, oh yeah, that's an IP. And obviously didn't pay any attention to how the IP has been reinvented twice. And just like go back to Raccoon City and Umbrella every time they do one of these adaptations. But they obviously didn't pay any attention to what its new face is and just thought we're just reminded that the IP exists and are like, how much money for that since you're being successful again? And that's probably where it began, is they probably just started getting offers again, I'm imagining.
Like the name Resident Evil came across the desk and like, remind me which one that is again? Right.
Yeah,
The city.
that's the one with the zombies and
The zombies in the
corporation,
city.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so okay, we're going way off the rails here. If that's where they started. So, first off, there's the recent Resident Evil movie titled Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, I think was the title. Very clunky title, first off. But
Right.
and that looked it didn't look great. I will say from the trailers. I still haven't seen it. I know people have. Apparently, it's not good. Apparently, it's muy bad.
Ooh.
And yeah, like
muy bad.
Even some people. Now, again, I haven't seen it. I'm just going off of what the consensus is here. But I did see somebody in the Resident Evil Twitterverse post a picture of the poster of the original Resident Evil movie, the original Anderson Resident Evil movie, and said, "We didn't know how well we had it."
Oh no!
And I'm like, ooh.
Oh no! Oh, that's bad. Oh, that's real bad.
That's
a new low.
I mean, I feel like I just witnessed a murder.
That's a new low.
Like that. Yeah, so I'm like, ooh. But like, here's the thing: is that adaptation at least made an effort to be faithful to the video games. Obviously, it takes place in Raccoon City. It has all of the cast members, all of the characters from the games, right? None of this, who is this Alice person who's stealing the thunder of beloved characters? So it at least has that going for it. And obviously with its production design, it's making a huge effort to be faithful to the look of the characters, even if they made some casting decisions where it's just like, but I mean, they diversified, I guess, the cast a little bit more ethnically. I think that was a very deliberate decision, but it really,
that's fine.
Even if you're going to do that, like, I feel like there's still decisions you can make that can make the characters more match what the character traits, like what the non-ethnic character traits of the characters are.
That's the thing. Like a character's cultural background can vary wildly, but their personality can fit within that cultural background in any way, right? Like that is how you do diverse characters. So like if you look at, because I don't know what they did. I don't know. I'm just going off of complete generalizations here. If you're going to port a character,
you're talking about this in the abstract.
Yeah, in the complete abstract. If you talk about a character, porting him into a new reboot, remake, what have you, whatever the producers decide is best for this quarter, and you're like, okay, we need to diversify the cast, and we need to make sure that it's like, diverse enough or whatever, right? You need to boil down the characters to their absolute base minimum, like recognizable personality traits. Like this person is a biker. So we can take a biker and we can turn a biker from this culture and transfer them into a biker from another culture, because bikers look different from different cultures, right? There are different kinds of bikers. There are different kinds of people who approach the culture of motorcycles. And yeah, you take that same character and it's the exact same character personality profile, but like adjusted to be culturally appropriate for whatever culture you want that character to then be in.
Yeah, totally.
And that's just like, you take those defining characteristics and just find their equivalent in other cultures.
Oh yeah. I feel like you thought about this a bit more than some of these producers have, but and to extrapolate and expand on that a bit. Yeah, I think that's the thing, is you need to boil them down to their essence and realize what their defining characteristics are. And I think there's a couple of things that are really important, which is like, find out what those essential characteristics are. And also, I think for franchises like Resident Evil, where the image of the characters is so iconic.
That's true. Like the character design.
Yeah, the design, they need to have the right silhouette.
Yeah.
I think that's ultimately one of the big parts is the silhouette. Is you have to make sure that when that person is standing and posing as that character, you could completely blank it out.
That is,
and you can recognize who that character is, right? Just cover them with complete matte black, and it'll be like, I know that's Claire Redfield.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's actually a really...
Just know at a glance, just looking at the silhouette.
That's a really important exercise that you do in character design, in character creation, is silhouettes, and being able to just say what, like, if you have a character's, devoid of all details, a character silhouette, what are the things that you can look at that stand out, right? Like big hands, big feet, their stance, their posture, big weapon, right? That's a really easy one that anime likes to take into far extremes. It's like you can clearly see which one is which by the shape, size, and heft of their weapon. It's like, you got the big thick weapon on the shoulder, that's Cloud. The long thin katana, that's
Virgil,
Sephiroth,
or
Virgil, or all of them, right? Like you can have those. You take their characteristic, boil it down to a nice clean outline, stature, posture, stance, proportions,
personality.
Too. Yeah.
Like there's a lot of personality that reads.
Are they dynamic? Are they static? Are they laid back? Are they more so on and so forth. You got to be able to recognize that character and say like, ooh, that is a very confident, powerful character. That's Wesker.
Yeah. All right. So Welcome to Raccoon City. That movie has come out. I still haven't seen it yet. I might at some point just for completion's sake and just to see how bad it could possibly be. I will say somehow I managed to be very unimpressed with the visual effects even in just the trailers.
Very unimpressed.
Which usually isn't a good sign for VFX heavy pieces. And some of the production design decisions definitely made me kind of look. But
why does Resident Evil need to be VFX heavy?
I don't know. That's what I'm starting to wonder too. Like George Romero had a great script for Resident Evil film that could be done on a fairly minimal budget because it was basically just the original video game.
Yeah.
Because the original video game was basically not a parody, but it was a tribute to basically low budget horror movies.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. Loryn. I don't know why everyone's intent on making Resident Evil a blockbuster.
I don't understand what's going on anymore.
I can't answer your questions, but
like I understand if they're trying to make Resident Evil 5.
Exactly, right?
That's a blockbuster. That's a blockbuster game. That is just like that.
Oh,
you need the spectacle, the giant ogres, and that like the helicopters.
Yeah, that's a save the world like action adventure, right?
Yeah.
Like literally one of your objective markers is just save the world.
Right. But then like you go back to Raccoon City, it's just dudes with makeup.
Yeah. It's just zombies.
It's the whole thing.
It's just everyday people. Yeah, I don't get it. Well, you got stuff like the lickers and stuff, right? There you got certain monsters, iconic monsters that
that's a bit special, yeah. Like, the hunters and but still you can do that with costume.
You could, yeah, if you really wanted to. If you're Jim Henson, maybe. So that movie comes out. Apparently not that great. Like I said, I might see it. And at least made it an attempt at being faithful to the original source material. All right, so this Resident Evil Netflix series. What I was going to say was the critique that came up in the comment section that I've been saying for a while. I don't think I ever finished that clause.
All right.
that I've been saying is like this can't be hard, right? Making a good Resident Evil adaptation should not be difficult. Like this isn't rocket science, and yet this is the third iteration of
it's zombie films.
Yeah, it's the third iteration of a live action Resident Evil attempt, and like somehow nobody is getting it right. Like the 3 different attempts, 3 different studios, 3 different creative teams. Nobody seems to have even the remotest. That's not, I don't know if that's a term, but it is now, the most remote clue about what Resident Evil is and what its appeal is and what makes it great. Like, I have no idea what you guys are adapting. And like, it's not Resident Evil though.
The thing is, like of all genres, you would think zombie films would be the most like practiced and perfected by now, right? You literally just have to make a bog standard zombie film, name the city Raccoon City, and name the main characters Claire and Leon, and you have a Resident Evil movie.
In essence, yeah, I think there's a little bit more to it than that. But if you did that, you would do better than these other things.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just like all of the elements are there. Like we've done this before,
right?
Like. Obviously there's some stank on that pitch, but like still, like you don't have to do much to make a good zombie film. You don't have to do much to make a good Resident Evil film. You just don't, like Resident Evil. It's easy.
It's easy. It should be easy. Well, and its appeal is very straightforward, right? It's character-based. People love the cast of characters. These characters are iconic. And it's lore-based. It has expansive world building. It's got corporation mega structure with certain characters that are associated with it. It's got government and political facets. It's got all these things going on in the background that you could tie into. That's pretty much it. Like, if you just have those 2 elements, if you could do the characters justice and do the lore justice, the world building, then you're pretty much set. You could set it anywhere and do anything, and it'll be fine. And its specific style of, like, atmospheric horror and things of that nature. So, quick note, welcome to Raccoon City, right? The 2021 live-action film.
Mm-hmm.
First off, random note, did you notice how that was the title of the first episode of Resident Roleplay as well?
So I was gonna say I was really confused when somebody in our community Discord was like, "I'm gonna go watch Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City," and I was just like the first episode of Resident Roleplay? What's going on here?
Yeah, I was like, are they talking about us?
I'm pretty sure you've already seen it. Yeah, it's like what do you mean you're gonna go out? Like I think they're like talking about like going out on a date and going and watching that. I was like, you're taking a date to watch our content? What's going on?
yeah. I'm not saying they stole it. Of course, that's a very generic title.
Well, it is also the name. Like obviously, the reason it's named that is because that's what's on the sign.
Yeah. That's the iconic sign.
Yeah.
But like, not saying they stole it.
But you're saying they stole it.
But just saying, we came out in 2017 with that episode. They came out in 2021 is what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
There's a discrepancy.
Yeah. And that just so happens to be the most viewed episode of Resident Roleplay. Yeah, anyway. But with that film, like I said, they made an attempt at doing something faithful, even if it was, I think part of its problem also, I'm going to guess, is that it's a bit of a mess. Like there's a lot going on. You could tell just from the trailer. So I'm going to guess that doesn't work in its favor.
Did they try to do everything?
Yeah, they tried to do everything because they tried to adapt Resident Evil 1 and 2 at the same time. So already you're probably running into some creative issues there because that's way too much narrative material to pack into one film.
Which one was 1 and 2? 1
was the Arklay Mansion.
2
was Raccoon City with Leon.
And 2 was the city aftermath.
No, Raccoon City with Leon and Claire.
Yeah.
3 is Raccoon City with Jill.
Okay.
But they tried to do 1 and 2 at the same time in the same film. And I'm like, that's a lot of content to try and pack in there. I don't know if you're going to have room for that. Judging by the reception, I don't imagine they did. Yeah. That seems like a hard act to juggle. But
honestly, I want to see. Okay, continue with this. I want to pitch what I want to see in a Resident Evil film.
Okay, yeah.
As somebody who is who is the sibling of somebody who is a super Resident Evil fan.
Yeah. I want to hear your pitch after. All right, but let me finish my statement.
Yeah.
I'm not done with my rant. I keep beginning my rant, and then you keep stopping me.
Right.
So, like I said, at least made an attempt at adapting the source material. The only problem was that it was a bad movie.
That was the only problem was that it was a bad movie.
Yeah. The only thing they did wrong was
that the production sucked.
Yeah, I think it just wasn't produced properly, or production and creative wise. I think there were some issues with that one. But the only problem was that it was a bad movie. So then you got this Resident Evil Netflix show, which is simply titled Resident Evil.
Okay.
And
I think I've seen that.
I started the first teaser. I'm like, ooh, this looks promising. Why? Because this one looks like it has production value. I'm like, first thing that hits me is production value. I'm like, these cameras look better. This production design looks better.
Right.
The CGI looks leagues better than the last live action movie. I'm like, that okay.
Because that's what was wrong with the last one.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, wow, this looks well produced. This is hooking me in. Okay, you have my attention. I want to see a well produced Resident Evil live action. So, all right, I'm in. Then it starts going off the rails.
Oh no.
So first off,
did they jump the shark?
They might have. Well, I think it's contemporary, first of all. I think they give a date at some point. No, they give several dates. We'll get to that in a moment. But the first date they give is like 2022 or something like that. Something that's supposed to be contemporary. I don't remember if it was 2020 or 2022. But seeing as they're supposed to be contemporary, I'm assuming it's 2022. It's like, all right, what year is it? 2022. I'm like, okay, that's a bold creative decision for Resident Evil. Right? We're not going back to 1998 at least, I guess. So they're at least moving forward. But nope.
The games aren't even caught up to there yet, right?
Resident Evil Village would be sort of 2021-ish timeline. So, or 2020, 2021-ish. But I'm a bit fuzzy on that one. I'm not entirely sure, but typically the games are a bit contemporaneous with the time period in which they were released, at least the more recent games. So, however, I'm like, okay, that's a bit of a bold decision, but at least I guess we're moving forward. We're not necessarily trying to rehash the old Raccoon City thing that all the adaptations have tried to do.
Right, fine.
But then I was wrong because it was like, what's the year? 2022. What's the place? New Raccoon City.
What?
I'm like, first
New
off, why
Raccoon
would anybody live there?
Why would you do that? Yeah, completely in
Who would move?
Why would you?
Who would move to a suburb in a place called New Raccoon City?
Yeah. Don't worry, guys.
Nobody.
It's okay. You don't have to worry about any corporations going in. We don't have any mega corporations going on.
No, yeah, well, get this though. It's like, so you got the Umbrella Corporation.
It's still there.
All right, they're still running with the Umbrella Corporation.
It's still. Is it still
the
a
center?
record?
The center.
Wow, you let him back in.
The center of the city is like in the shape of the Umbrella logo. It's
what? What?
So then they're like, okay, then we're like
what?
looking into like very. So they're showing us footage of like, it's clearly, I think they're leaning a bit more in a satire direction. I think it's trying to be kind of edgy and modern and in that sort of way. And they're like cutting to boardroom meetings of the pharmaceutical company that is the Umbrella Corp. And you've got Albert Wesker, apparently, played by Lance Reddick.
Don't know who that is.
Which, casting decision I never saw coming. He plays the concierge in John Wick.
Oh.
Yeah. Deep voice, dude. Yeah. He's playing Albert Wesker. So he's like pitching the board.
I don't hate it.
It's really out of left field, though.
It is, but like I don't hate it.
Yeah. I mean, but I might hate this adaptation. So don't hold your breath.
I know.
So he's pitching the board on like, this new drug. They go into a bit more in the teaser and all that. And it's like, but it's T-Virus, of course. So now T-Virus starts spreading. It's New Raccoon City because it's new. And
wait,
so then it like smash cuts to like 2035 or something ridiculous. What? And it's like, it's now the not too distant future. And what is it? Guess what? It's post-apocalyptic again, just like Paul W.S. Anderson tried to do. It's like, why? When has Resident Evil ever been post-apocalyptic before Anderson?
What?
It's never been done. It's not part of the appeal. The appeal is about...
It's apocalyptic.
Yeah, it's like
no post. It is just apocalyptic, and then
It's also about, though, it is...
It's wartime.
Yeah, if you would consider Raccoon City apocalyptic, then it is post-apocalyptic. Because it is more so about what happens in a world after that has happened, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is, it's what happened in a world after that happened, and we survived. Like, we succeeded in containing it.
Yeah, it's not like Mad Max apocalyptic.
Yeah, so it's more so about the politics and the military intervention and how the world adapts to living in a world where things like bioweapons exist and are regularly deployed. So,
yeah,
that's what Resident Evil is about. But they're like, nope, post-apocalyptic. Big blockbuster fest. I mean, again, production wise, it looks really great. Production wise, I think Resident Evil has never looked better.
Okay,
I'll say that it looks better than even the Anderson movies.
Good.
It's got
those look pretty good. Well, the early ones.
Visual effects look solid. Yeah, in the second teaser, they showed some liquors. We got to see some liquors because obviously that's an iconic monster.
Of course.
And I'm like, wow, those liquors actually look decent. Those, I recognize them as liquors. You got good photoreal CGI rendering. I'm like, okay, that looks all right. Production wise, it looks decent. It's well cut. It's well color graded. The cameras are great. You got great cine cameras. The makeup and production design, even on the practical zombies, that's all solid craftsmanship.
Mm-hmm.
But I just have no idea why you people, you people want to turn Resident Evil into something post-apocalyptic, because that's not what it is, and that's never been what it is. And that's the issue.
It's not like grime and rust post-apocalyptic. That's not the same feel. Like, it is post-apocalyptic has more than one look.
Oh yeah, and they're going out into a desert and everything. Like, it's very clear.
Why?
That
it's a suburb in the middle of America.
It's very clear that they're taking heavy influence from the Anderson films. And it feels like, I posted this in our community Discord, but I'll say it again. It feels a lot more like it's trying to adapt the Anderson films into a series rather than trying to adapt the video games and the source material. It really just feels like it's using the Anderson films as its source material, because even in the way it shoots, like the
gross.
Yeah. So, because you got these dual timeline things going on. It's like where it began in 2022 with Umbrella and New Raccoon City, and where it goes in the post-apocalyptic future. Like, it feels like it's got this parallel timeline thing going on where they're telling two different kinds of stories. And it feels like even with the corporate stuff, and the way they shoot it, the way like the environment kind of looks and the laboratory sort of aesthetic, it just really feels very akin to even how Anderson portrayed that stuff. So it just all just feels like, yeah, just a series length, a long form adaptation of the Anderson verse is what it feels more like to me. And that is not a vibe I wanted to receive. And obviously, with the exception of Lance Reddick as Albert Wesker,
right?
The rest of the cast is entirely original, right? So no, none of the rest of the iconic characters.
Wait. Wesker's the only like Resident Evil character in the film?
In the series, yeah.
Or like, in the Netflix series?
Yep. As far as we know so far. Unless there's some that's going to be revealed secretly.
There's probably going to be like cameos or whatever.
Yeah, it's going to be like, hey, yo, I'm a survivor.
I don't. Is it a cameo if it's a fictional character that's like?
I don't know. It's a reference, I guess.
Easter egg reference.
It'll be like, hey, yo, I'm a survivor named Chris. I'm dead now because you're the main character.
You pulled my heart out or something.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on, man. And it looks, like I said, in the trailers, the problem is, like I said, it's well produced. The trailer is decently cut, even. I would give it that. If it wasn't Resident Evil, maybe it might have some appeal to me, which is such a weird thing to have to say.
So do you think,
because that's the only reason I would even be coming to it, but it's just not what we want.
So do you think it's going to be good?
I don't know. Honestly, the worst thing I could say about it is that I honestly don't care. I don't care at this point if it's going to be good or bad. It might be just because, like I said, it's decently produced, so maybe they had decent writers.
Hopefully.
But the problem is those decent writers have clearly never played a Resident Evil video game before.
Right.
So I'm not really hugely invested in whether or not it's good anymore because of that.
Right.
I just want to see a good Resident Evil adaptation, man. I just want to see something like the animated films in live action. Just do something like that. They keep licensing it out to people who are dropping the ball for live action. And like the fandom has to keep screaming, this isn't rocket science. It should not be a difficult thing to do a good Resident Evil adaptation. But we've said this about a number of things, you and I.
There's a bunch of stuff.
There are a number of things that Hollywood has, and just the industry in general, not just Hollywood, because not just films, now we're expanding into shows, but there's a lot of things that the industry has had trouble adapting repeatedly that should not be difficult. Fantastic Four should not be difficult.
It's super easy.
Resident Evil should not be difficult. Doom should not be difficult, for crying out loud. It's Doom.
Doom is so easy.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Doom and Dr. Doom.
But like, it's simply because, both Dooms
should not be difficult.
Both Dooms are very easy. But it's simply because, I think the only reason is because the people who are in charge of making these decisions don't understand like how people work. It's just, I think it just boils down to that. Like they see a community and just like, oh, I don't get it.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't get it, but it's popular, is what they see, right?
I don't get it. It's popular. It must be monetizable. So how do I do that?
Yeah, it's popular. It's making money. Economically feasible.
So a sound investment.
A sound investment. Oh gosh, I hate hearing that when you're talking about a medium for creating stories. Yeah, man. I don't know. These shouldn't be. Well, here's the thing. Would you say then? Because Marvel Studios is famously enjoying massive amounts of success right now.
Right.
And whether or not you like, we've talked about this, I think, before on the podcast, whether or not you think it's earned, or rather, whether or not you like them, it is earned.
Yes. Right.
Right. They played their cards right. They moved one step at a time. They put in the work. If you look at where it began and where it is now, it's hard to say it wasn't earned.
Right.
That being said, would you say that their advantage then was that the producers, namely Kevin Feige, who's been executive producing the entire MCU, the producers, though, of Marvel Studios have a better understanding of people than the producers of stuff like Resident Evil?
No.
Because they have massively capitalized on the emotional capital that they have under their properties.
And here's why. And here's why I think a lot of the projects that failed in the way that they did. Not failed per se, but like couldn't, like they weren't as good as they could have been. And here's why I think. I don't think Kevin Feige understands people any better than any other corporate executive. I think he's just as sociopathic and psychopathic as anybody else. I don't know. I never met the man. But he's in a position that he's in, right? So here's what I think. The reason they were so successful is because they knew that they could not themselves understand the community as good as somebody from the community. So they got somebody from the community to do it for them.
You're talking about Jon Favreau?
Yeah, I'm talking about Jon Favreau. They took Jon Favreau, pulled him in, and are just like, do your thing. And he made a movie, and he made it good because he understood what the draw was. He understood what people wanted to see in an Iron Man film. He knew Iron Man, the character, and he made it. And when he made it, he was able to do stuff that a corporate executive just wouldn't be able to grasp from, the penthouse floor of the corporate office.
Sure. Yeah, well, and he didn't write the first Iron Man either, though. But yeah, I get what you mean.
But he was able to do stuff creatively, right?
Right. Yeah, he was able to do stuff creatively, and no doubt they hired the writing team that was able to do the same, because it's full of all that homage.
Because what I don't think happened was Kevin Feige came down and said, here's the movie you're going to make. He said, I want an Iron Man movie. Make it.
Well, I suppose in that case, perhaps I asked the wrong question, because my question wasn't whether or not you thought the individual producers had a better understanding of human nature than the producers on these less successful adaptations, but rather if they did successfully capitalize on human nature.
Yes. In that case, they did, because I'm arguing that what they did was leverage somebody who did understand and was able to leverage the emotional weight of those characters and all the history that comes with it.
Yeah. Well, and understand the inherent appeal that they had.
Yeah.
Which is, again, what I'm saying they're failing to do with Resident Evil. They're failing to recognize its inherent appeal. And I think the MCU from the get-go understood the inherent appeal of what it was building up to. Or at least as soon as they conceived the idea of it being a shared universe, right? Yeah. As soon as it became obvious that was the direction it could go, they capitalized on that appeal hard.
Right.
Like, I will never forget seeing the first Avengers film in theaters for the first time. It's just a complete fanboy moment.
Yeah.
When you see these characters that you've seen in all these separate films come together for the first time and not only meet but exceed your expectations about what is possible when they meet, in terms of the dialogue, in terms of the action, in terms of all of the dynamics of their interaction. It's just perfect, right?
Yeah.
It's perfect adaptation. And it's everything that you want it to be.
It was like watching a comic book come to life, which is exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah. And so in that sense, yeah, they were successful at capitalizing on that. It's basically where you're ascribing credit, is basically, I guess, where the questioning failed. But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the point is there is credit due there, though.
Yes.
That the reason the MCU found its success was that it was adequately able to leverage, the emotional weight that we as audiences have for the properties.
The emotional connection.
And the emotional connection.
They knew how to use that emotional connection.
Yeah. And that is where I think these other adaptations fail.
It's all cash.
I think that's where Fox failed multiple times with Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I think that's where, although, failed apparently much worse the second time around, that's especially where they're failing with these Resident Evil adaptations that they keep trying.
Yeah.
They are just not, there has not been a single live action Resident Evil, and seems there won't be for some time now, live action Resident Evil that capitalizes on what I, as a diehard fan of the franchise, love about the franchise.
Like, it just, because it doesn't feel like Resident Evil. You watch a Marvel film and it feels like the comics. It feels like all of the things that you've seen these characters in before. It all seems connected because of that understanding, right? These new Resident Evils, or just any of the Resident Evil live action adaptations, they don't feel like Resident Evil because they don't understand. And like what you're talking about, they don't have that connection. It's just a cash grab. They're cashing in on an intellectual property, not a community.
Yeah, which is sad because we're just sad.
Yeah, everybody's just sad.
I feel like Nobody else will, so I'm just gonna apologize. We deserve better.
I'm sorry, us.
Yeah. That's just. Anyway, what's your pitch though?
Okay.
Before we wind down, I want to hear your pitch as somebody who's not as big of a Resident Evil fan, but knows me.
Yeah.
What is your pitch for how to adapt Resident Evil successfully into live action? Hit me.
Yes. So an original Resident Evil film, right? Because obviously I don't want to adapt a straight up narrative from the games, because I would love to see the Arklay Mansion in live action. That would be amazing. Something like what was it? Is it Resident Evil 1? Or in Lost in Nightmares? Something like that. A live action Arklay Mansion would be fantastic. However, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do that, I should say. I would love to see it. I don't want to do that. So a film that I would want to do, if I were to do a Resident Evil thing with the Loryn spin.
Yeah, what would your Resident Evil movie be?
So what I would like to do is bioweapons as allegory for nuclear weapons, right? So basically have a film that is closer to Revelations, where it's this isolated incident that if it continued, would basically spell the end of humanity or whatever, right? Like this huge biological incident that was stopped by a select group of people, a small group of people, like where you have kind of this who's who of Resident Evil names, right? Just the characters stopping this one incident that could spell the end of the world. Something along the lines of what was that? The Cold War
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Combining the Cuban Missile Crisis with Resident Evil Revelations, where there is a ship chock full of bioweapons headed for, I don't know, getting within like missile range of the US shores or something like that, right? So they send out a team to go investigate, and then Resident Evil ensues. But as allegory for mutually assured destruction type of stuff.
I see. That's not a bad story. What about the style? Like, what are you thinking your approach would be from that point onward? Would it just go into, like, when they arrive, like, atmospheric horror mode? Would it be kind of that?
Kind of like Resident Evil Revelations, where you get on board and you don't know what's happening, right? So all you know is that this ship has biological capabilities, but you don't know what you're going into. Like, you don't know who's in charge.
So it's like...
And then in standard Resident Evil fashion, there's going to be some twists, right? Obviously, like, maybe the ship was hijacked. Obviously, there's going to be a leaked bioweapon. Like, literally, there was like a gas leak and people got bioweaponed. So you can have that element there, right? But I would like to have that mysterious kind of claustrophobic on a ship feel, where they're going through tight corridors and they don't know what's going on and they don't know what they're looking for. Because what the intel that they were given getting into the ship, right? Like, there's like, they're going in, enemy ship, chock full of bioweapon potential, coming within, like about to come within range of firing on some American cities. So like, we can't have that happen. We need to stop it. Send out a team, intercept it. They get on board and everything's different. It wasn't what they expected. They need to figure out what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. So that sort of mystery and discovery kind of approach to the storytelling.
Yeah, very claustrophobic.
Yeah, but claustrophobic all the way.
I do like that the theme that they had in Revelations, where like there's a lot of underwater creatures, but just like literally going through water and having like sections be submerged. That is, I think that's a pretty good way to have that tension kind of build. Is that maybe like the ship is capsizing or something like that, and like the water levels are rising, and with that, the creatures that were turned, they have more and more access to the team that is investigating.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's a decent pitch. And of course, all the while featuring iconic Resident Evil characters.
The whole team the crack team that goes in is obviously going to be led by Chris, and pull in just people who, just pull in some classic names, right? Just take your favorite characters, chuck them in that team, and say the government tells you got to go to work.
Who you casting as Chris Redfield?
Oh, shoot. Casting as Chris Redfield. Oh, Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, I was gonna say the exact same thing.
Yeah, I was like, I'm thinking of a face. Who is that? It's like, oh, obviously, it's Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, I feel like Extraction really sold me on what a live action Chris Redfield should look and move like. And plus, he just has a good look for it. Like, he's got the right body type.
He has right hair.
He's got
mostly the right hair.
He has the right hair. Yeah, he's definitely got the right hair. He's got
His face shape is the
his
same.
face is kind of arbitrary. Yeah, generally the same, but Chris's face has changed over the years, so it doesn't matter too much.
That's true. Well, he's always kind of had that square face, though.
He has always had a bit of a square face, but yeah, for sure, Chris Hemsworth has become an ideal Chris Redfield.
Yeah.
Interestingly,
I would
and
take.
it'll be easy to direct him because his name is Chris. So
Obviously. Hey,
people will
Chris.
say Chris, and he's just like, oh.
Well, am I in character
I'm
right
here.
now? What's going on?
But for sure, yeah.
What should the team be made up of? Because I think obviously Chris is the best in lore to lead this kind of a team, right?
Well, where you have Chris leading a team, it's probably BSAA.
Yeah.
So I think you should have Chris and Jill.
Chris and Jill. I think Leon can be there as I think in this timeline. He would still be working with the Secret Service, whatever that group is, with the president.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he's present in a supporting role.
Well, exactly.
Not in a hands-on role.
Well, I think what he's there to keep the president in the loop. So you have the militarized faction on scene to do work, and Leon is there to support. Obviously, he can still do things, but he's basically there as a liaison.
He's
right?
not. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I feel like that's the sort of cast you need. I feel like those are really the most of the main cast that we can justify being there.
Oh, and then
obviously.
And then you can introduce, because every game's got to do this, you got to introduce the supporting cast that will eventually become iconic characters in and of themselves, right? You have the people who are coming in second and completely just chock full of lovable characters. There's like the BSAA group that he's going in with have to be like big and boisterous and full of personality and character, only so they can get killed off, which is kind of sad.
Yeah. You need expendable crew members.
Yeah.
But
they all have
you
to be
should also
characters.
have You should also have Barry Burton there just to be Barry Burton.
Ooh, no.
And then worry that he's going to die like every other scene, but he never dies. It's like, oh, no, not Barry. But then it's like, he's fine. He'll just crack a joke and talk about it afterwards and be like, oh, wow, you were almost a Jill sandwich. Oh, man, I was almost a Jill sandwich. Good thing I've got this. That's his whole role.
The whole movie is just that.
Yeah. Just there, like literally just there as fan service, just to be Barry Burton for like 2 hours straight.
But like in the climax, like he goes super serious for like a hot second. It's just like oh no, like this suicide mission is like, don't worry, I got this.
I have this. Well, what's gonna happen is you have your darkest hour beat. Yeah. Right? Where Chris and Jill they get got. So they've been captured by like the queen or whatever, to use an aliens analogy, right? So somebody has to go in solo to try and rescue the protagonist. Yeah. Who can do that but Barry with all of his guns? So he's gonna like collect the remaining arsenal and be like,
strap them together with duct tape.
It's okay, I'm in the NRA. Like canonically, he is in the NRA, and so he's just gonna go commando, and we get to see him go full bore for the first time, and it's gonna be amazing. Yeah. Honestly, though, with you giving this pitch, I have thought obviously a lot about how I would adapt Resident Evil for live action. Right. For a variety of mediums, but also live action. Of course. And before you gave this like very concrete pitch, I realized, I never really settled on a very concrete pitch for what I would do with it.
You don't have one.
If I was given the opportunity to write it. And now I feel like I'm kind of formulating one. I feel like, I've thought about it, but I haven't settled on something. And I feel like I have...
Do you want to brainstorm?
Yeah, let me brainstorm right now. Let me make this really quick because we need to wind down. But I want to deal not with... I'm going to make it more concrete, at least, than I've had it. But I'm still going to deal rather abstract with more so principles of what I want out of an adaptation. And then we'll go from there. I think what it needs to be, first off, again, I would like a faithful adaptation of Resident Evil where they do a direct storyline from the games. Okay. That being said, if I were to do it, I think I agree with you. I don't know if that's what I would do. Yeah. I think an original storyline would be a better way to go, featuring iconic elements and characters and monsters. You draw it in with that so that there's familiarity there for your target audience, for the people who play the games. Mm-hmm. And so that there's familiarity there to ground you in like, okay, yeah, this is Resident Evil. I can tell because everything that's Resident Evil is there, but just the setting and the storyline is new. That being said, the setting and the storyline should be a spiritual adaptation of one of the games. And specifically, if it's a reboot, right? If you're starting from the ground up, you need to go back to the beginning. So it should be a spiritual adaptation of the Arklay Mansion. Not the Arklay Mansion itself, but a spiritual adaptation of it. So what does that mean? What are the elements?
Same design, same principles.
Not necessarily same design, but same principles. Well, I guess same design principles in that sense. Yeah. Where not the, but when you say design, what came to my mind is like the visual design, which the Spencer Mansion, the Arklay Mansion has a very iconic visual design. We don't need to rip that off.
Yeah, not you don't need a mansion, but it has to, but the same design as in going into a mansion that is basically a haunted area, right? Like it doesn't have to be a mansion, it could be anything. Any building that they go into that is, for lack of a better term, haunted, but not supernaturally, technologically.
Exactly. And biologically.
Yeah, biologically.
See, and that this is what they did with Resident Evil 7. That's what made Resident Evil 7 such a good, fresh start, is that it was a spiritual successor to the Arklay Mansion, right? When you really look at the story of Resident Evil 7, it in effect is a retelling of that.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a haunted house, but just changing the setting to the American South instead of the American Midwest, and making it a little bit less pharmaceutical, less corporate in the nature of its social commentary, and more, I guess, more so in line with what the newer Resident Evil lore is, which is like terrorism and that kind of stuff. But
extremism and religious extremism.
Not necessarily religious extremism.
Well, it's just like some occult stuff.
Although a little bit, not as much as in Resident Evil 4, say, but
then maybe not that much, but
Resident Evil 4 is like very obviously like dealing with religious occult type imagery, but 7 less so. I mean, I guess you could say there's like a cult like idolatry of Evelyn, but I think that's the closest.
No, sorry. I was thinking of 8. I'm thinking of 8, not 7.
Oh, okay. You're thinking of Village. Yeah. No, I'm talking about 7.
Right.
That is basically the same storyline as the first Resident Evil game, right? So that's a good prototype for what a spiritual successor
it is actually
of the Arklay Mansion can be, right? 7 was clearly designed with the same principles, but with an entirely new biological threat, entirely new cast of characters, and entirely new visual presentation.
The design of that game, you're right, is almost exactly the same.
Yeah, pretty much. Obviously the character archetypes are different, but the way you approach it in the story,
but the way they slot in,
the way they slot in is pretty much the same. So that's really where I would ground my principles, is in something like Resident Evil 7, which did faithfully, spiritually succeed what came before and stuff like the Arklay Mansion.
Yeah.
So basically revisit something like the Arklay Mansion and make the setting similar to that and evocative of that feeling without being the actual thing, so that you could do new stuff with the storylines, have new twists and turns, but really ground it in the sense of atmosphere. Atmosphere is huge for Resident Evil, and I think it needs to be directed like an art house piece with slow, methodic pacing, lots of quiet.
Deafening silence.
Yeah, deafening silence, but also lots of good use of music. There needs to be save room themes.
Yeah,
there needs to be
a save room theme.
Yeah, there needs to be moments of respite, and with very strong use of music in order to orchestrate the audience's feelings as they're moving through this slow-paced crawl throughout this, as you described it, effectively haunted locale.
Yeah.
As this team of competent survivor characters. Maybe even if you want to go with like a Stars style type arrangement, hyper competent characters.
Yeah, people whose job it is.
Yeah, whose job it is to be good at extreme scenarios, but are facing something that they haven't faced before. So, and that's where the horror comes in. That's where the terror comes in. But they still have training to ground themselves in.
They can draw from something, but they have to adapt.
Exactly. And that's where the survival elements come in. You see them adapting. You see the survival horror elements, and you can kind of see, if you've played the games, how that kind of might reflect some of your experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it obviously iconic cast of characters. You got just that element has to be there. It needs to be recognizable characters, and I think it needs to be a strong mix of this atmosphere and this tension and this quietness, with moments of explosive outbursts of action, and especially towards the end, when you get to the climactic countdown where everything is self-destructing, because inevitably it has to self-destruct, and in which case you take all of your hoarded resources, right? There needs to be setup and payoff as well, with the resources. Hoarded resources throughout the whole thing that they get to the payoff and used in one big climactic escape where they fight a tyrant at the end. So that's my
There you go.
for,
And
for a Resident Evil movie.
And to remain faithful to the games, they have to have one item that's like, oh yeah, we'll save this for a special day, but they never use it.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes in a chest at some point and never comes out.
It never comes out again. Yeah, I feel like you're right. I think with this setup, there needs to be something in the narrative of the film that is like an area that is deemed safe for whatever reason, right? Like you can make up some reasons, like okay, like for whatever reason they can go here and can be guaranteed safe. But there has to be a moment where they're being chased down or somebody is injured, and it's like, okay, we need to get from here to that place because we know that is safe. That has to be a very clear narrative beat of just,
yes,
not only is this safe, it is safe even if it is not safe anywhere else. It's not just that nothing's happening right now. It's that going there is safety. Because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that people do with films where like there is a safe spot and it's very clearly like this is supposed to be like a safe space, but how they get around that in the narrative of the film is just like, okay, it's just that every time they're here, there just doesn't happen to be anything going on, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not that it's a safe spot, it's that you've associated being in this place with nothing happening. You have to make sure that it is clear that going here means safety, even if it is unsafe everywhere else.
Exactly. It needs to be a designated safe spot where it's not that, you have it exactly right. It's not that nothing's happening while they're there. It's that this area is protected from all the threats outside of it.
For whatever reason.
Yeah. You're darn right. That's a Resident Evil movie right there.
That's a Resident Evil movie. It has to have all those elements, and it basically, here's, again, it writes itself.
It really does. We just did that in one brainstorming sitting. It's literally not even 10 minutes of work. Judging by the timestamps. I really don't know what they're doing, Loryn. I don't know what they're doing. Look how they massacred my boy. Oh man, I'm so sad. I'm sad. I'm depressed now. Let's end this podcast.
I'm sad for you. You know what? You deserve some rest.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all very much for listening to this
indeed
all over the place rant episode of the Hypercube podcast. This show is edited by Loryn Pacheco, mixed by Raphael Pacheco with theme music by Mono Memory. Until next time, we'll see you all later. God bless.
See ya.